Madam. Okay, Madam Secretary, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, we are calling the meeting to order. The time is now 7:01 p.m. on July 25th. I want to thank everyone joining us for our special meeting of the Executive Committee for Community Board 9. At this time, we have one item on the agenda that we're meeting for. This is with regards to the district office personnel authorization. This is to fill the vacancy that is left as Khalid Nixon has moved on to a position at another office. So just for background and context for the record as well. So we did meet on this topic previously. There was a special meeting called on July 19th, at which point there were some additional questions with respect to the vacancy posting, with respect to the civil service title and the pay as well. So those questions were referred back to the district manager, who's done some additional research and is coming back with an amended authorization request, which will be presenting this evening for the consideration by the executive committee, which again is in accordance with the CB9 bylaws, where the executive committee would be authorized to is empowered to actually make the authorization for the district manager to proceed with the hiring. So at this time, we will now go on to item 2 of the agenda. And I would ask for the district manager, Dante Arnwine, to please address the executive committee with your findings and specify your request.
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for convening another special meeting to discuss the vacancy that has now been created with the departure of Khalid Nixon. And so after the previous meeting, I want to thank everyone who submitted questions and thank you for giving me some time to actually find the answers to those questions. You all should have received, I believe everyone did, should have received a response that addressed those questions. I believe I sent that on Thursday of last week. As it stands, the request, I think, which is appropriate, is to start this position out at $45,000, noting that that is already a $5,000 increase from what Mr. Nixon was being paid. An increase, and the person hasn't even started yet. So, I think that $45,000, while I understand that, inflation is impacting everyone, and Brooklyn is very expensive. This really is a position really meant for someone who is either getting their feet wet in city government or in government in general, or someone who may have been at an agency, but us bumping it up to community associate provides them, a better opportunity, I guess an increase in rank as it pertains to the civil service titles, and of course, increase in salary. So, I sent back the request. I hope that everyone had an opportunity to look at it. With that, I will take any further or additional questions that you all may have. But I think that the request answered all the questions that I received from the executive committee. You're muted, Fred.
Thanks for that. All right, just to make sure we stay in order, let's do this. Let's entertain a motion. I will entertain a motion to adopt your recommendation, at which point we can have whatever conversation, if there's any additions, amendments, or anything that can be done as part of the order of the meeting. So do I have a motion to adopt the recommendation of the district manager for the position at community associate at $45,000? Do I have that
Seconded.
motion? No, I need the motion.
Oh.
So made.
Okay, I have it moved by Warren Burke. Chris, you still want that second?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so moved by Warren Burke, seconded by Christian LeBeau. All right, at this time, we will take questions on the matter at hand. I can't see the other hand, so if anyone, I would just ask if you could just raise your hand. Dante, just please let me know who's on the list. Chris, I do see you. Dante, if you could just let me know who else is on the list.
Kyrie,
Okay, I have Kyrie. Who else?
you said you got Christian, correct?
Yes, I have Chris.
Okay. There are no other hands raised at this time.
Okay. I'm going to put my name down. But let's continue. Okay, so we're going to close. Are you sure? Anyone else? Because after this, we're going to close the list. And we're going to go to the motion. Anyone else?
Yeah, may I want something slightly so I can wait to the end?
You want me to put your name to the list?
Yes,
Okay, I'll add you, Ms. Watson.
thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to be added? Going once. Going twice. All right, we're going to close on Ms. Watson Lord. Okay, Chris, you have the floor.
Sure, thank you. I just want to say that I think it was helpful, the information that Dante shared. I think that the proposal that he put forth is a thoughtful go-between that takes into account inflation. It's not perfect. Things on the community board, it's never perfect, but I don't think that at this point now, bumping up the salary a little bit, about a 6% salary increase, bumping up the title a little bit, which should be helpful to the person. But more importantly or equally important, I should say, to those two things, just sharing information and explaining more how things work, for me, is really helpful and useful, and I appreciate it. And I think it's a good way forward. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, Kyrie, you now have the floor.
Well, first and foremost, I just want to say good night to everyone. And as everybody's taking time out to be here. With that being said, so I actually was one of the folks who responded to your initial ask. You responded initially only back to Christian with everything. I do feel as though there were some questions that were not answered from when I initially asked. And two, you present us with a 45K salary increase. Yes, it may be 6,000 more than before. However, our initial motion was for a salary of $50,000 at minimum, or 52K, and that's what we all voted on. So now you've responded with something at 45K. Two, in your response, you listed the personnel budget, personnel services budget, 001, which states that there is $223,365 there for personnel. We know that you also, I believe, said that you've requested a raise for both you and the district assistant district manager, and you all salaries are 85K and 75K. So there's a remaining balance of $63,365. So I just would like to know, is there not a way? I have two questions actually. So the first one would be, is there not a way for the salary to be considered, which we initially voted on at $52,000, seeing as there's $63,365 left over based on the information you shared with us from the budget for personnel?
No, I appreciate your question. Thank you for that. So, with the remaining balance, if we use the high end, which was the 63,000, with the salary that was proposed, I think it was 50,000. If you add that to the full staff salaries, okay, that leaves $13,000 left. Okay, so that's with the $50,000 salary. So, it's my fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the financial decisions of this board are appropriate and judicious. And I don't think that I would move forward without, having a buffer in my budget. So, I have to adjust for expectations. Things are going to pop up that, aren't really listed. And so, I'm hearing signs of possibly a recession. So if a recession happens, likely community board budgets are going to get cut, right? So if we do a salary of 50,000, that leaves 13,000 left. I used a buffer of $10,000. I think that that's a fine, fair buffer to give the board a little flexibility. That would only mean that there's 3,000 some change left for the board functions. So when the committees come and they send me their budget requests, we're talking about, we're going to have a community fair next year. I believe that the community fair would be much bigger next year. So I would expect that there will be more expenses. So that's 3,000 for that. Youth services tend to always have some type of programming. We're going to need money for that. So when you put the 50,000 and then you boil it all down, and I use my buffer because I need a buffer, it would be financially irresponsible not to have a buffer. There's just not enough money left to be able to work with the board and the committees to hopefully be able to do all the things that they want to do. So looking at that, I feel like 45 is right there in the middle. And then that gives us a little flexibility over time to, okay, if the community board is going to do X, Y, and Z, that's my job to project, hopefully with the committees, if we're able to get some budgets, I can project exactly what we're going to have in the budget moving forward. One thing that I think is also important is that even though they may not be getting the salary now, they haven't started working yet. I think it's important for us to provide an incentive, right? So if they come hard, they come to work and they work hard, if we have that flexibility in the budget, yes, we can hopefully be able to increase their salary at a point in time. So I think providing that incentive is extremely important. Most likely, we're going to get someone who has very little experience. And so to hopefully keep low turnover in positions that typically are high turnover because boards can't pay competitive salaries, we want to provide some type of incentive for whoever is selected into the position.
Thank you for that. My second and follow-up question, because okay, based on what you just said, and also the communications that we've all had with you, via email, okay, the initial reason why we all requested the salary be increased from $42,000, which was your initial ask, and you've now presented us with $45,000, though we all were in agreement that it would at least be at $50,000, is because in Brooklyn, New York, it's almost impossible to live and survive off that little bit of money. And in the event that we do want to be as competitive as the other community boards in New York City, we definitely want to make our community staff members, our office staff members, as comfortable as possible. Thus why you've asked for an increase to get your salary to go higher to $85,000, where now you're offering a position in just almost half of what you have to someone else to come on board to help serve our community. So I feel as though us as community board members, it is our responsibility not to foresee or worry about certain things other than all members of our community and doing the best work for the community, which leads me to the follow-up question. I asked also, is there a way that we can do a fundraiser specifically for this, where we tell the public if that's a way to do it? Also, I believe it was Christian, in another response you made to Christian, you said that, and I quote, "I am not comfortable transferring funds to personal services, especially for a staffer who has not yet to work." You also just said that right now. I personally understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, it is up to the community board we can vote to where you can transfer funds from 002 to also help support personal services budgets in 001, where all salaries are being shared from. So though you might not feel comfortable doing so, I want to know, is it within our rights to vote to make you to do so if we deem necessary that someone that's coming on to have this position as a community associate is paid more than $45,000? And if not, are you willing to accept a little bit money less, since you think it's possible for someone to survive and actually work for our community for $45,000? Those are my questions.
Okay, so I will address some of that because it's outside of my purview and responsibility to get into the weeds of the bylaws. So I will leave that part to Fred. I want to make it explicitly clear because what you just said was completely wrong. I have never asked for an increase in my salary. The salary that I have, which is $85,000, was the salary that was offered to me when I took this position. I have never asked for an increase. So that information was incorrect.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
not for your position, maybe for another
Well,
office.
you said that on the record, and so I wanted to make sure that it was
Okay,
clear because people
let's
will.
continue. Let's continue.
So I just want to make sure that that's correct. Now, in terms of the salary, if it's outside of my control, if the executive committee wants to vote on a particular salary, I think that the email that I sent made it explicitly clear where I stand. I think for the financial safety of the stability of the board, you know, we have to have flexibility in the budget. And so if the executive committee makes a decision like that, that limits flexibility. So, you know, I can't answer to if the executive committee should or should not vote or can or cannot vote. That's outside of my purview. So I will leave that to the chair of the board.
Well, we did vote for 50,000 and you responded with what you responded, which again,
I don't-
is less.
I believe that it was a tabled matter. No?
Yes.
No,
So,
we
The
voted.
matter was tabled.
so if it was
The
tabled,
ma-
then there
matter
wasn't a
was
vote
tabled.
in the affirmative or in opposition. So it was tabled. And that is hence why we are back here tonight.
And can we fundraise? That's the question I would also like to
No,
know.
so we are unable to fundraise for that position because it's a public servant position. So we're a government agency. We're not a 501c3. We're not a private business. We are a government agency. We have to go through the right protocols in the hiring process.
Understood. And lastly, just to the last point, can you speak to your not being comfortable transferring any funds? Because and the fact that you do have the authority to do so, or that we as the executive committee can vote for certain funds that are in the other budget of, like, I think it's in excess $43,726, that we could actually tap into that, just 5,000 more, just to get this new salary up to 50,000. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, so let me discuss the 43,000. That number is going to fluctuate quickly. The $43,000 is once bills have to be paid, we have to modify different lines. So we take money from that and then we move it and then we pay for the bills. So the $43,000 is going to fluctuate really quickly. So doing the math like that is going to be extremely complicated. Why I am not comfortable moving money from OTPS to PS is because explaining the board budget is extremely complex, right? And so for someone who isn't familiar with the process, they may presume improprieties, and that's not what I want, right? So I want to make it explicitly clear that I am not in favor of. I don't want to go that route. I really feel like that's a end of the road route, and most likely OMB is not going to let us get into that situation. But to make it explicitly clear, there's a lot of people who have no clue how the money moves from one pot to another. And so just as a good business practice in the interest of transparency, I don't feel comfortable moving money from operations to personnel services because, you know, if just people could interpret that the wrong way.
Okay, thank you. I guess that was the follow-up again, because we don't necessarily have to do that, because there is still excess funds in the budget that could, the same budget that pays for all salaries, that could still get the 50,000 if we, the board, votes for that. But that was just the last option. That we also have another option, essentially, to move funds to ensure that whoever we do hire as a staff for our community can afford to live in our community. Okay, so thank you.
All right. I do have myself as next, but let me defer. Linda, go ahead and I'll close out the list after that.
Actually, after listening, I'm kind of mixed up now. So let me regroup. I come right back. My question. It was
Fair
more
enough.
of a observation really than a question to Dante.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just want to speak to a couple of points. First of all, Dante, I do want to thank you for coming back and being responsive to the questions. And I do want to thank the executive committee for bringing them up. So absolutely, we're not supposed to be a rubber stamp. So clearly there's some deliberation, some creativity being shown as well in terms of thinking, what else can we do? What options do we have? One of the hard parts about working for the city, being a public servant, is you don't do it for the pay. Absolutely not. So it is one of those hard considerations that we have to look at when we're doing this. To give some historical background as well, typically that third position in the office, actually, this is the first time we've had a third position in the office. Well, yeah, only a few years ago was the first time we had a third position in the office. Because typically we had, for a number of years, it was just a district manager and assistant district manager, a district manager who did everything by herself for a number of years. And then, we're rebuilding the team slowly. But the intent, or in most offices that I've worked with, or other community boards, typically if you have that 3-person setup, you have the district manager who obviously is the head of that office. You'll have an assistant district manager who might have a portfolio or is responsible for other high level functioning, and then you'll usually typically have a staff member. That third person, for better or for worse, typically is usually in that community assistant title, which is why historically we've used it. And that's why usually it's used in a lot of other offices. It's usually used, and to the point that Dante made before, usually that's a stepping stone for those coming into city service. And people would come in, they learn the ropes, and they do exactly what Khalid did, and you get promoted and you get hired somewhere else. So, I definitely applaud, us trying to do better, but I also would caution that usually typically this is the stepping stone in terms of they're going to do more things. They're going to learn the ropes. And if we do our jobs and they do really well, they'll be going on to bigger and better things. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is we are capped at our budget. And that is by city rules, where we only receive a certain amount of money for the personnel services budget. I did also want to speak to, and I do want to reiterate with respect to the $50,000 salary. That was a proposal that was brought, but we did table that because there were additional questions that came up with regards to the budget, what the actual amounts were we were working with civil service titles we will be working with, and a number of other items as well, which is why this was sent back to the drawing board, and the district manager is representing this with the amended numbers as well. I do also want to speak very briefly with respect to the transferring of funds between PS and OTPS and vice versa. It's a very dangerous game, or it's a very dicey game. And this comes from my experience with respect to serving as chair, as also a civil servant who works as well, and I have to deal with the budgets. The OTPS, typically that gap is used for other things, like for example, if we need to hire consultants, if we need to bring in part-time assistants, if we need to do certain other things, typically that's what that that gap would go into. Or we choose to say, okay, well, listen, roll everybody up in salary, so that way they can have, they can make more money, and we can max them out in salary. Now, the danger, which the district manager kind of alluded to, is the city budget can be volatile and fickle. Over the last, this is going on my 4th year, we've had requests from the city to cut budgets, at least 2 of them. It happened at least twice. I think we were in a fortunate position where we did have some excess funds in a couple of places, so we were able to do that, and we didn't have to sacrifice anyone, so nobody had to take a pay cut, which actually doesn't even equate to a pay cut. That means we got to lose somebody. So I don't think city rules even allow for us to give them a pay cut. So in terms of giving them, the salary structure the way it's set, it allows us to try and be as equitable as we can, but also keeping an eye on the fiscal picture of the city in terms of not having to cut anybody's throat at the end of the year. So that PS budget serves that function in terms of we have money to give back if it is requested. We have money to do additional services if we need to. And even on those other occasions where it's like the PS funds can be used to supplement other than personnel services. So in other words, it enables us to get HVAC cleaning. It enables us to do deep cleaning for, post-pandemic. It enables us to do any critical infrastructure needs and things of that nature that we need to do in the office. And to the point that the district manager said, it is truly a dangerous game to run it the opposite way, where we all of a sudden say we're just going to make the commitment to take OTPS and pay salaries out of that. And if we look at it from the extent of we're living lifestyles, or the board is living a lifestyle that's not, set by the city. The city says our salary structure should be between that $220,000. If we are consistently moving money into PS from OTPS, that is a red flag. That is a potential red flag in terms of money's going up from places where if our salary structure is 220,000, we need to make it work at 220,000. So those are the only points that I had to make with respect to that. But again, I just wanted to finish by saying, definitely I don't think 45 is an optimal thing in terms of what we could do for somebody. But I think looking at the big picture in terms of the board operations, in terms of the financial picture, fiduciary responsibilities, making sure there's flexibility, making sure we're able to support the board office and support programming wherever possible in the community. I think this is probably the better, I think this is probably one of the more prudent options for us to pursue. All right, thank you very much. And Linda, you have last.
All right, actually, Fred, you spoke a little bit on what I wanted to just comment on, that not only in city, but also I've worked majority of my life in accounting in the 501c vicinity. And yes, it's not really a good thing for us to be moving money from one place to another, especially when you have to give reports to other people. Other people read stuff into it that might not be your intentions, and then we will be in their trouble. And so to me, really, if the structure salary was a salaried amount, I think yes, we could put feelers into it about living in Brooklyn and the high cost. Yes, that's a reality. But the reality is that sometimes we as civil servants are, well, I'm a civil servant in another country, but we as civil servant still has to stay to the budget. I am also in the process now of hiring a person to replace our assistant accountant, and the salary that the government of Barbados is offering is way less than this. And it's because we cannot, even although we will have discussions like how we have it here, because it's me who sent out the invitation for salaries. So I'm the entry person that people talk to. Why nobody can live off of this? But we've got a very good young lady to come and to be the assistant. Yes, because even although some people can't live on it, there's still a way that, some people that want to do the job will help. And if we can get a smart commitment for now, and then maybe, we could speak to the city when things get better and say, well, look, this person's been doing this, they've been working good. And so we could push for that on fundraising. Kyrie, I would have definitely not even think of that. We can't do that. Even for a 501c, we don't raise fundraisers for salary. In our 501c case, we always look for the big donators to give us the money to cover the salary for the year or for the people, because fundraising is not definite that we will meet what we want, and we will have to keep on. We become less than the board and more like a money machine to pay somebody. So I think the $45,000, we could start with it. Yes, I agree with you that, young people need more money than we did. But we could start with it and let us see who we get. Let us see the work ethics that we get. Let us see the performance. Don't let us really be looking to pay a high salary and don't get good performance. Then we have to be firing them and keep on hiring. So let's raise a person that could help us.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Linda. Okay, so I think we've exhausted the speakers list. At this time, we are going to call the question. So the motion currently on the floor is for the executive committee to approve, to authorize the district manager to hire for the vacant position with the civil service title of community associate and a salary of $45,000. Okay, at this time, we'll call the vote. All those members.
No, Fred, so made.
Oh, yeah, the motion is on the floor. I was just stating it for.
The motion is on the floor. It's simply have to
Okay,
vote.
Yeah,
my error.
okay. No worries. All right, so all those members of the executive committee in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
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 All right, all those members, well, let's try this way. We'll get the names of those who are opposed. All 7 members, all six members are here. Francisca is currently absent. She's excused. All right, are any members opposed to the motion as stated? Please state your name for the record for the secretary.
Kyrie Aline, opposed.
Duly noted. Are there any other members opposed to the motion as stated? Please state your name for the record. Okay, I call one more time. Anyone opposed? Here, okay, one in opposition. Are there any members who wish to abstain from the motion as stated? Please state your name for the record.
I should note, it did come up last Thursday when that hearing happened at night. That was the day that was invited tested positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's some noise in the background, but I call for a second time. Are there any members who wish to abstain? Okay, I hear no abstentions. So we have no abstentions. We have member Kyrie Aline in favor. And for the record, I see Fred Baptiste in favor, Warren Burke in favor. I see Christian Lubeau in favor. I see Linda Watson Lord.
I said I was
Kyrie
not-
opposed. I got him noted.
Yeah, I thought I had. Oh yeah, I did note you. I didn't note you in opposition. I'm just stating for the record those who voted in favor. Linda Watson Lord in favor. I have, and I'm sorry, lost my track. Christian in favor, and I have Nicholas Almanor in favor. Okay. With that, the motion carries. The authorization is provided to the district manager to continue on with the hiring process. The district manager is also advised that he is also going to making sure that this is being advised fully. If you could please provide a copy of the final posting to the board as well, so we can disseminate in our networks, just to make sure that we get a good number of people who are aware of this position. Hopefully we can get some good talent out of this. All right, with that, we have concluded item 2. We are now in item 3, which will be adjournment. Before we take that motion, so I just want to thank everyone again for coming out for this special meeting. Obviously, this is not as part of our regular order, so I thank everyone for taking the time to come out, and definitely looking forward to working with everyone as we prepare for the upcoming board season, which will be starting in September. So with that, I thank everyone again, and at this time, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Moved by Warren Burke. Do I have a second?
Aye.
I don't hear a second.
Aye.
Oh, Linda Watson Lord seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. I hear a majority. We stand adjourned. The time is now, let me see. I have 7:30.
7:34.
Good day
Thank
to
you
you.
very much, Madam Secretary.
7:34.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
all. Have a very good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Thank you.